Hello, I'm Melissa Reader. Welcome to Agehood. It's the podcast for people who are quietly carrying it all. Aging parents, kids, work, life, and their own next chapter. If this sounds like you, well, you're in your agehood and it's time we talked about it. Today, I'm joined by Victor Dominello. You may know Victor as a former Minister for Digital Innovation here in the New South Wales Government. He was the architect of Service New South Wales and someone who has really championed how technology can make life a little simpler. But recently, Victor shared something that is much more personal, his family's journey caring for his mum, who is living with dementia. Victor, thank you for being here. It's really nice to have you here. I've been looking forward to our chat.
Likewise.
You spent over 15 years in the New South Wales Parliament, if I've got it correct, firstly as Minister for Innovation and then Minister for Digital and Customer Service. And I know that when most people think about your time in office, they think of Service New South Wales, that transformational piece that made government simpler and a little bit more human for many people. So, turning those long queues and those forms that we all remember into something that people often talk about as simple and a lot more dignified. Perhaps, the one part of government that is a whole lot easier to work with. And COVID also showed us how critical that transformation was. When you look back on your time in the ministry and in Parliament, what do you think made that transformation really resonate? Why did it feel important and really significant to so many people?
Ultimately, if you create something that is useful and usable, then I think most people will adopt, ultimately, whether you're in the private sector or public sector. Unfortunately, or in the public sector, it's really difficult to get those two qualities because government is just a beast with so many silos. So to make something useful and usable, you need to normally have that horizontal type lens rather than all these vertical silos. And that's why it's really, really hard inside of government. But I think if you deliver that, people have shown en masse, and pretty quickly, mind you, obviously COVID accelerated the journey because we then introduced more useful and usable product lines in the service app that people will adopt. So Australians, but definitely in New South Wales as a test bed, show that we are early adopters if you got the right product. And
we can see the utility, the gains. Like I think anyone our age could still remember
the RTA.
The RTA. There's even a great part in one of the Pixel films. You know the one I'm talking about, right? Where they show how terribly slow and drawn out that process was for people. You had to allocate a couple of hours to go to the RTA.
I remember Gladys Berejiklian, who I owe a lot of credit to because things don't happen without leadership, and I had her leadership. So she gave me the air cover I needed to go crazy. So if it wasn't for Glad, a lot of this wouldn't have happened. But I remember Glad telling me a story early on in the piece where she would literally take a book to the RTA because she knows that she was going to be there for a few hours.
Yeah.
I would literally have to take the morning off work to go and renew my stuff. Like it was crazy.
Everybody would remember that.
But you would factor that in. I've got to go to the RTA. There's the half the day gone.
Yeah. And also, a lot of people got really disgruntled. So I often thought about what it was like for the staff and the RTA just having irritated people in front of them.
Yeah, well, it's not great for staff.
It's not great for anybody.
And it's not great for the people. Yeah. And, the RTA was so visionary at the time. They had the Perspex screens before COVID. They were training us for COVID, you see, with all the Perspex screens and Form 1Q. But, you look at the modern service centres now, there's no Perspex screens. People come in, and even if they are upset or frustrated, the CSAT scores show that when they come out with a smile on their face, or 93, or in fact, on the service centres, last time I checked, it was like 98% thumbs up. Like, crazy good for government.
It's been huge.
Yeah, crazy good for government. Yeah.
And now you're outside of the public service. You're in a very different season of your life and career, but you're still really engaged, as I know you, with ideas around systems and reducing friction and actually bringing more dignity and compassion into the system. So tell us a bit, what does a week in your life look like now, and what are you most focused on after your political career?
Well, look, I've been blessed. I believe that there's that parable in the Bible that says, the widow with talents. Like the widow puts 2 coins in the tray, and then you got the wealthy person at the front putting $1 million in the tray. And the mean person, well, how come I didn't get them? Well, because I gave you so much opportunity, and this is all you give back. The widow didn't give her anything, and she gave more than back, right? So I feel like I have been blessed with so much opportunity in my life. I've got a lot more I've got to give back before I sort of, try and knock on the door to the pearly gates. So what I'm trying to do is think, all right, well, with all these opportunities I got through, particularly my journey in New South Wales in the government there for 12 years, how do I bottle that up and then create knowledge or share that community or knowledge? The best way to do that is through building a global community. And then we can start sharing best practices. So we can help governments evolve from a 2.0, which is a government G2, which is very silo driven, to a government 3.0, which is the stuff that you and I were just talking about, which is human driven. Yeah. Put the human at the center, get rid of all the dross and the noise. Don't worry about the silos. We don't need to know about that. We just need to make sure that you get your services really fast, really efficient, really safe, so you can get on with your life. You don't need government in your life. So that's the thinking.
Better for everyone.
Yep.
So with the idea of that human at the centre, tell me a little bit about that sense of, I've had a life with so much opportunity. What are some of the kind of aspects of that? Tell us a little bit about what opportunity has looked like for you.
Oh, well, look, again, somebody once said to me, the harder you work, the luckier you get. But some things you just, doors just open up. Like I never wanted to be a politician, in the sense that when Gladys asked me to run for Parliament, I said no. I actually
What were you doing at that stage?
I was a lawyer. I was a partner in a law firm, and I was just starting to, I was a partner, and it's just, you get to a certain threshold where you actually seen the same case 1,000 times before, so you know your stuff, right? And it's not that you can take a breather, but you can actually be more strategic than in your thought, rather than just working like a machine. And I got to that point thinking, okay, I sort of know my stuff now.
Catch your breath.
Yeah, catch my breath. And then I go, oh, no, now time for you to go back into the machine and start working like a crazy person again. So I said no, but then my mum, because my dad passed away when I was 30, a tragic accident. My mum never remarried. She's just, mum and dad are soulmates. So my mum and my 2 sisters said, look, you should do it. In fact, it was a 2-1 vote. My
Took to the family vote.
Yeah, it was a 2-1 vote. My Earth Angel sister, who's the primary carer for my mum now, she said, don't do it. Like, we'll never see you again. Politics are full of idiots. You've got a good reputation now. You work hard. You've earned all this. Why would you throw all this away to go into the cesspit of politics? But my other sister said, do it. And then my mum said, your dad would be proud. So that was a clincher for me.
Was there anyone outside the family that you kind of talked to, got counsel from? Well, obviously Gladys, but I'm thinking others.
Yeah, Gladys. I had a few other people. Like my partner in my law firm at the time was saying, what, you're going to leave me on the lurch here? Like, so, that's why I thought, look, I'll just put it to the family vote, because I had competing interests as to whether I do or not. But, these opportunities, when I said, that was an extraordinary opportunity. And it was a gift. And then I got elected in, and I had no idea what it was like to be a minister. I remember Barry O'Farrell, who was the Premier at the time, he said to me, if you were to be a minister, what would it be? And I thought, oh, geez, I don't know anything about being a minister. Like, just give me stuff I know, like multiculturalism. Right? So I sort of know that. And I can do a bit of volunteering. I can do that. I can't rick up too many things. You didn't
go in with a ministerial agenda saying, no, I want to lead digital transformation for the state. I didn't even
go in with a representative agenda. I wanted to be a lawyer, but, they said, look, there's an opportunity to make profound change inside a parliament and government. I was in opposition for 2.5 years. But, then when Barry gave the ministries out, he I was fortunate enough to get one, and he also threw in Aboriginal Affairs. And I had no understanding at all. But what that taught me, particularly the first 4 years when I was a minister there, was how to listen, because I knew nothing. And the Aboriginal community was so good to me. Shizo was so good to me. They must have known I was a greenhorn, but they literally held my hand. They would tell me lots of stories. They really showed me the power of storytelling as well. Like, I learned so much in those first 4 years. Then the next 4 years, happenstance, I got innovation and Better Egg, and then the last 4 years, COVID, and I was there. Like, all these sliding door moments, opportunities that I didn't curate, they just happened. I mean, I just happened to be there.
Just like the serendipity of life.
It is, so, but, I guess I took those opportunities. Yeah.
I think you have a reputation, certainly when you were in politics, for having that fresh perspective, a lot of that courage and that listening ear. And I can imagine that would have been really refreshing for the community as well, because there are a lot of great politicians that bring those traits, but there are some that don't.
Yeah.
And so regardless of whether you had deep knowledge in the portfolios you were leading, you were there to listen and learn.
Oh.
And that would have meant so much to the people that were in front of you.
Well, so I'm still learning now.
Like, we all are.
I wake up every day. Like, I realize how little I do know. I just think the great source of leadership for successful leadership is to surround yourself with people far better than you. And that's what
ask
I've done.
Great questions.
Yeah.
Because knowledge is not the end game anymore, is it?
It's the ability to put, the most important muscle in the AI age is your deltoid. Put your hand up, ask the question. Because if you're not asking questions, then you're left behind.
Yeah. We'll come back to that conversation around digital and curiosity. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit on a more personal level, because you've been speaking publicly more recently about your mum and her, she's living with dementia. We did a piece on Channel 9 together a couple of weeks ago. And I wanted to ask you, as her son, what has been one moment in the process of your mum's journey that has really, it shows us what it was like for you as her son?
During her dementia journey, you mean?
Yeah.
In recent times?
Whatever feels right for you.
Oh, wow, there's so many. Maybe can I preface all this? Like, the only reason that we went public about this was, again, it wasn't through my courage or anything. It was through my sisters. What happened was, because it's so deeply private, and I really feel that, you obviously approached, and I respect so much the work you're doing. And my mum's specialists also reached out and said about the same time, look, we need to put some public awareness around this, and your mum would be a great candidate for that public awareness. And I've resisted up until that point. So for 6 years, because I could have talked about this 6 years ago. I could have spoken about it in Parliament, but...
And you've often shared little anecdotes about your mum in maybe your LinkedIn posts and whatnot, 100%. But you've never really unpacked the story. I feel
so guarded for her privacy, and she's not in a position where she can voluntarily release that privacy. But then when I again spoke to my sisters, and they're amazing people, and they said straight off the bat, look, it's great for public awareness. It's for the greater good. Mum would have appreciated this. So that's why we're talking about it. Look, probably during those, particularly the last 4 or 5 years, I'd go to Mum's place religiously, and we do cooking together. And Mum is a phenomenal cook. She could make, she could put a brick in between two pieces of bread and it still tastes good, right? Like, she's amazing. And she would never want me in the kitchen when I was a kid, because I'm in control of the kitchen. She, in a very gentle, beautiful way, but no, you go and study. Oh, let me do this. Because one of her many love languages was food. But when in that journey, as she was getting, through her dementia journey, she invited me into the kitchen more because she needed more help as well. So we started cooking more together. Initially, I would just do the preparation, and Mum would do the cooking, and then I'd start doing the cooking as well with her, and then towards the end, Mum would just do the preparation, and so that journey, and in many ways, like I did a link to a social media post every Sunday, but for me, it was a catalogue of a journey for 4 or 5 years of that beautiful bond that we've got through food.
And still giving her agency in her own kitchen and a sense of purpose.
She's always in control and absolute purpose.
Because they say a lot, in terms of loving for and caring for someone with dementia, it's really important to still give them choices.
Yeah.
Even if it's just a choice of 1 or 2 ingredients or outfits or whatever, but don't take the choices away.
Yeah, spot on. And we'd go shopping together. I say, Mum, what do you want to do? Like, do you want to do this or that? And, we do it. And but Mum would always, say, well, what would you like to do, son? I said, well, what about this? Okay, yeah. So, but the point is, it was a dialogue, and it was a precious, precious time. Yeah.
And I know it's been really hard on your sisters too. This
Catherine
journey.
in particular is just extraordinary. Yeah.
And it must have been hard for you to, given your dad died when you were 30, so you've been the only male in that family. The eldest of 3 and the only son. That adds other dynamics too, doesn't it?
Sure, but I'm easy in the sense that my journey's been nothing compared to like Catherine. She's look at her. She's an earth angel. Like she looked after Mum for a year. She's a primary school teacher. She gave up her job. She's doing, emergency foster care. She's got 2 beautiful kids and amazing husband. Like, I can't imagine putting myself in her shoes and the stress and the burden on her shoulders. Like, I've got an easy life compared to her.
Yeah.
So, I respect where it's due.
That juggle, that strain
is just extraordinary.
It is huge, and it's becoming so common, but it's so silent on so many levels.
Superhuman.
What do you think was the hardest thing for the family in terms of, the emotional side of this, the practical side of it, or the kind of constant decision making? What's been some of the toughest things?
Navigating it. And again, I'm reasonably well versed with government and forms. God help us with, don't get me started on forms, but
we might come back to that too.
I've had a crusade against these damn things. And how to streamline processes. So I'm used to all the frustration, but when you are in, the boiler room, it's very different. And when I'm really busy as well with a million things going on in my life, and Catherine, Marie, everyone's got a million things going on in their lives. But when someone said, we got to do this, well, what do we do? Like, there's 1,000 different things we got to. There's no one-stop shop. There's no, like Service New South Wales type approach, one-stop shop to guide you through. That's really overwhelming. And, what happens is you say to your family, what do we do next? What do we do next? So you go and explore that. You go and explore that. It's really bad. It's really bad.
And all of that kind of sadmin, as we call it, that kind of overwhelming bureaucracy is happening at a point in time where you're emotionally overwhelmed too. You're dealing with health changes or decline of someone that you love. Yeah. You're not just waking up on a Monday morning and leisurely going to, fill out a form that has no real meaning. No. It's happening at a point in time where there's just this real smash up of all of the emotional and practical. And then things keep changing, don't they? It's,
constantly changing.
You're constantly having to navigate and advocate.
Yeah, and constantly changing in my mum's journey. Like her personal journey is constantly changing, let alone our worlds. And then you're going to have to update forms, and it's just, and to be honest, it gets to a point where it's just too hard. So you just think, I'll just leave that to the end.
Tell me a bit about that.
Well, let's spend quality time with Mum, right? That's the quality time. We'll get to the forms and everything else. That becomes second, third, fourth order priority. But you quickly realise that without that support in place, looking after some quality time with Mum gets harder as well, right? So it's a double whammy. It's a pressure cooker. If that was working seamlessly, then that would enable this ordinarily difficult challenge in our lives to be a bit smoother.
And decisions that little bit easier.
Well, yes.
I mean,
definitely.
what you've just described there is the common state. And, I talk about this idea of just too little, too late.
Yeah.
Because that too hard basket that you just pointed to is so real for people.
Yeah.
And they just don't have the bandwidth, the emotional energy, the practical energy to work through a lot of that stuff. So they just don't.
Yeah.
And then they arrive at decisions and they don't have a sense of what is important. They don't have all the inputs. They don't have the family members on the same page. And that's when things start to get really messy.
Hard. And like, Melissa, I used to be a litigation lawyer, so I know how to read a document. I used to move laws in Parliament. I know about laws, right? Imagine somebody that, and I really struggled. Imagine somebody that doesn't have English as a first language, or somebody that doesn't have a supporting, loving family around them because things are fracturing. Like, if I found it hard, it is unconscionable what other people would be going through.
That's so true.
Yeah.
And that's why we're looking at, 11% of people having a power of attorney.
Yeah.
86% of people having no kind of plan in place for this because it's too hard in its current form and it's going in that too hard basket.
Yeah.
People don't know where to start. When we think about dementia, it's the second leading cause of death in Australia.
I think it's number one now.
I thought that I read that last week. It's Dementia Action Week this week, so there's lots going on around that. But it is definitely the leading cause of death for women. And I'm curious, from your experience, what makes it such a uniquely difficult condition for families to face?
Well, I think the burden is obviously with dementia, the person going through dementia, they go through a lot of decline, but for the families, it's like a long goodbye because you go through, it's not like it's static. You go through, plateau, drop, plateau, drop, plateau, drop. And every drop, there's one, you feel like it's another goodbye that you're not getting back.
It's grief.
Yeah, it's constant grief. Like I went through, profound grief with my dad, but that was just intense shock. But this is very long and it's very challenging. Yeah.
The other kind of paradox that I see in dementia is early in someone's diagnosis, nobody really wants to talk about decline. You want to think about how well mum is today. So trying to have conversations around her future care, her preferences when her cognitive ability will be a lot less. It's so hard to do those in the early stages.
With mum. Like mum is fiercely independent and she would never wanted to go into a home, never. And we never wanted her to end up there. But the reality is you get to a point where you need 24/7 care.
Yeah, it's the right place at the right time.
It's the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
And we never wanted that to happen. But again, she needed proper professional care at that point. We'd still go and visit every day, but still, when we had those discussions at the beginning, mum was saying, no, I don't, I'll be okay. And towards the end, like she was saying, look, we'd point out to mum, say, look, mum, like the dementias, she'd be in denial initially. I don't have dementia. They've got dementia. I don't have dementia. And then we'd point out little things, say, mum, oh, look, you forgot to turn the stove off or something like that. Yeah, I think it's time to move in with Catherine. Oh, I don't want to move in with Catherine. Oh, why don't you just go and help Catherine out? Catherine needs a hand to look after the kids. Oh, okay, I'll do that. And then, so we graduated that way. But the real hard part was then transitioning into a home. Like that was really, really hard. And there's a small window where I think you can do it. But
did your mum go through respite first before she went into?
No. What we did, we went. Like all the nursing homes we went to were very good. But it's just the timing. Like the first time we went, again, my sisters stayed overnight with her. She had slept in the room. They did the room up. But mum was still aware enough to know, well, this is not my place. Like, why am I here type thing. And that was just crushing for us because we feel like we've let her down and we've abandoned her, and no one wants to do that because she's done so much for us. Like we can't give enough back for Mum. So, Catherine said, no, I can't leave Mum here. She's still too aware. And then tried again, and then still no. And then the third time, by that stage, Mum was, the dementia had evolved to a point where she wasn't as distressed moving in. Like she's not constantly saying, I need to go home. I need to go home. This is now her home. And she's adopted that. And finding that place was really hard. But we got there.
What a place of like grief and relief at the same time, because your mum now has that round-the-clock care that she needs, but to get there.
Oh, that was tough.
Yeah.
That was tough. Yeah, no, we hated it.
Do you see, having gone through that and kind of putting your former political hat on, do you see points in the system where people are at most risk of falling through the cracks?
Yeah, again, I think when governments, when they work well in their silo, in their domains, like if you've just got an health issue, generally government, particularly in Australia and, most advanced countries, they provide pretty good services in the scheme of things, right? But that's in the silo. But when we need to go and join up services such as the stuff that we're talking about here, where it's not just one department looking after you 24/7, it's, you need to go to this department and then you need to fill out that form in that department, then you've got to go over here and here. You and I will make the jump between the various verticals. We won't like it. It'll be painful. It'll be traumatic, but we will make the jump. But if you're vulnerable, you're not going to make the jump and you'll fall between the cracks, and it gets worse and worse. And a lot of people, for example, that find themselves in a homeless situation, that's a typical example of people falling between the cracks, right? So it's not like, they typically, you have a job, you love your job, you've been there for 30 years, you lose your job because of a change. Then all of a sudden you can't cope, you can't find another job. So you get onto substance abuse, then you abuse your partner, then you end up in jail, and then, you're not treated well there, and then you're on the street because, you lost your family, then you're homeless, right? So that equals employment, industrial relations at the beginning, intersection with the court, intersection with detention with a crime. Then you've got NGOs asking you questions all the time. Like, these are people literally falling between the cracks at every critical point.
And also, those people are just suffering so much emotionally at the way that their life has
been upended,
taken that path. Yeah, there's a lot of shame, there's a lot of regret. It's such a painful place. So they're not in a place where they've got any kind of resilience.
Correct.
To kind of address the things the system needs from them.
Correct. So the system is not designed to look after that horizontal journey, because I think if it did, then you would stop a lot of the trauma at the top of the river, rather than
when people are in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's actually a great parallel to this whole chapter of life. If we had a way to have conversations when, we might turn 50 or 60 or certainly 75, we still may live another 20 years, but we start to recognise that we are moving into a different phase of our lives, and we need to talk with our families, the people that care for us, around what matters to us, what our values and preferences are, to do some of that joining up that you're talking about, and think about the dignity and the preparation and the support that can anchor everybody through that. And I've heard you talk a lot about life transitions, and that's immediately what I'm thinking about.
It's a massive life transition, and it's part of life. There's no avoiding it. You're going to go through it.
Not 1 in 5, not 1 in 10.
That's right. It is a life transition. There's there's some big life events that people go through. This is one of them.
How much do you think technology has got a role to play in that?
A massive role. Like I'm a bit of a tech junkie, but not because I like my toys. It's far from it. I just want to reduce suffering, but in a big way, and improve quality of life on the other side of that coin. So, how do you reduce suffering? Well, we can all get on our knees and pray for a miracle. All of us, the 8 billion or whatever we are in the world now. Get on our knees, pray for a miracle, and let the blind see, the deaf hear, and the lame to walk, right? But it's not going to happen. But if we use tech responsibly, we will get modern miracles. And it's not just in terms of cochlear or stuff they're doing in relation to robotic vision now. It's crazy how it is wild.
Yeah.
So and it's going to continue to improve. But it's also in terms of service delivery. So how do we use tech and platforms to synthesize all this mess and noise to make life a lot easier?
It feels like a really important moment in time because, there are incredible services out there. There are incredible people doing on-the-ground work. And we could sit here and tell ourselves that one day we'll have enough money and have enough kind of energy in the system to put a person in front of another person and solve that. But that is never going to happen. No. So when do we kind of flip the script on that?
And Melissa, that one day might be hypothetically 10, 20 years. Look at all the people that are going to suffer between that time.
Well, it's a lot closer than that when we look at the demographic shift. That's the thing that I'm really kind of reckoning with in the conversations that I'm having. We can't push today a social worker, a palliative care. Like we just don't have those resources here. So how are we going to address that gap, and how opportune is this moment for tech to help us with that and increase access, increase outcomes, and do it at a cost that we can actually afford?
Yeah, well, the service model, I think, shows that you can do that. We've always got the physical service centres. There's always going to be a place for the human in the loop, as it were. But not everyone needs that. A lot of people would rather go click on the phone, get out of my life.
At 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah, 10 o'clock at night. You do you. Or actually, I'll pick up the phone and talk to somebody. Like there's multiple channels. But I think most people would say, look, give me the fastest, easiest, safest way to do it. Because, if I need to see someone, I've got to physically get up. I've got to get into my car. I've got to walk there. It takes time. And sometimes, time is the most precious thing. So you think, I need that help right now, quick.
It also means that human service delivery can be really focused on where it is needed most.
Spot on.
Yeah, that's critical, particularly, again, when we think about this life stage. I'm really keen to understand your views on like equity and technology. So how do we think about tech in a way that people still feel seen and heard and cared for? And how do we think about it in terms of different levels of education and tech literacy and even diverse cultural needs? How do you think about that?
So one of my, I made a lot of mistakes in my life, but one of the big wake-up calls for me, again, using my mum as an example, was when I was minister and we were rolling out those COVID vouchers, right? But also the QR check-ins. And I remember, I was just so determined to get as many people onto the platform as we could because at the time, no one knew what was going to happen. We were worried, was this going to mutate up into the brain
It's a terrifying time.
It was a terrifying time. No one wanted to go to school. A bit of a hindsight. Oh, yeah, we know we should never have done this. At the time, everyone was saying, I'm not even going to take my kids to school. We don't know what this is going to do. So, and we said, we'd say, you can't go to a venue now unless you check in. Pen and paper, blah, blah, blah. That was massive privacy concerns, but privacy just went out the window. But not just privacy concerns, security concerns. Like we were hearing people, a lady would be writing her name and phone number and address for contact tracing, and then somebody behind would just be taking a photocopy.
Yeah.
Right.
And it doesn't give you any data. There's nothing that you can use.
In real time, no.
Yes.
If somebody was going to have to digest a double entry, it was just crazy. It was just not fit for purpose. So, and then people said, we'll download apps. We can download your own app. Every time you go to a new venue, I'm going to put in, and that was clunky. So when things become really clunky and awkward, people, not everyone, but a lot, will say, look, my name is Mickey Mouse, a couple of zeros, like,
see you later.
Just get me into the door, right?
Yeah.
And you just need one person and the system, COVID contact tracing collapses. So I said, no, we'll go through the Service app, right? We'll make it. You just tell us once and bang, click, click, click. You don't have to download every damn form ever again. And that took off. And I remember Mum saying to me one day, she said, oh, son, can you help me download the QR, checking code on the app? I said, of course, Mum. I'm the Minister for Innovation. I'm Minister for Digital.
Let me help you with that, Mum.
I sort of know a little bit about this. And I was so embarrassed myself because I looked at Mum's phone and it was so old, right? It couldn't even download the operating system. So she couldn't even get the QR reader. And I thought, you bloody idiot, you've left behind some of the most vulnerable people that we're trying to protect, including your mum. You've left them behind. You haven't designed for that. So whereas most people could have got on their phone and got on really fast, there was a cohort of people that I neglected. And I thought, I can still remember the time looking at the ceiling thinking, you idiot. So what we did, we reversed engineered that. And then we said, well, what we'll do, Service will give you a QR code in the form of a QR card. And then every time you go to Woolworths or Coles, they can they can get you. So they got the data so they can then feed it into the system, right? So we reversed engineered that experience. But the point is, it just taught me you can use tech in that situation to be inclusive. But the biggest lesson for me is it has to be part of the design. It should never be part of a bolt-on. So when you're designing tech, inclusion has to be a design element.
I think that's fundamental, but I'm also just so aware of the pace that you must all have been working at, and you can't let progress get in the way of the perfection that we know we all want.
True.
You had a real need to meet.
True.
So I can kind of see it on your face that must have been a horrible moment when you realised that. But, the flip side is you did make that available to millions of people.
We were moving near miles an hour. We were building and flying the plane at the same time.
Did you get much sleep in that chapter of your life?
No, because then I was doing a lot of research at the time as to what Singapore and Korea and Vietnam, because they went through SARS and MERS. So I was looking at what their trends were doing. So I was getting a lot of insights from their side. But look, we got there in the end. And
we all know what a QR code is now, whereas
we know what a QR code
most didn't. It was some kind of novel, strange
it was a strange
pattern pre-COVID.
But hey,
it's got a lot of utility now, hasn't it?
Yeah.
A big part of what we talk about on Agehood is the juggling act. The people sounds a lot like your sister and you and your other sister, how you balance all of this as your parents age and as their health needs change, and you may be raising kids and you've got your work and everything else in the middle. But one thing that we don't talk about enough, and I know you and I have talked about, is productivity, because caring for a loved one, it's not just emotional, it really reshapes work and careers and
in a big way.
Livelihoods. And I'm just keen to understand, from what you've seen and what you've experienced, how does this affect people's productivities? What does it mean for career progression and financial security?
Oh, look at my sister. Like, she's literally given up her job as a teacher to look after my mum as a full-time carer. She's now, we're now into that next phase where she's now getting back into the workforce, but that took a while to do that. So that whole transition, was about a year or two. And that's painful emotionally, financially.
Confidence really takes a knock in an experience like that. You've gone through a huge journey as a carer, and then you're kind of trying to get back into the workforce.
Yeah, that's why these carers are superheroes in my books. And then, like for me, I'm not married, don't have kids, so I'm literally married to my work, which is not healthy, but I've got a very tough partner in that sense. But, mum is a huge priority for me. So, I'm there minimum 2 days a week, and, I'll leave at 3:00, spend time with mum and get home by about 7:30, something like that. But, if I wasn't doing that, I'd be more productive at work, right? So, yeah, it does take a big toll. And then there's all the other time that you're spending worrying and, looking for solutions and, trying to find out what the best thing to do is. And, that takes time. And
mental effort as well as like actual
Correct.
time, doesn't it?
It's emotionally, mentally exhausting. So then you've got to shift into the brain to say, all right, well, now I'm focused back on work again. So yeah, it is really, really tough.
And it feels like we're only just beginning, or we have begun to make some good progress around parenting, around how you really support parents having children, raising young children in the workplace. But this idea of parenting now, where you're caring for your parents.
Yeah, parenting. That's
I wonder what it would take for, workplaces to really start to think about how they're going to support their midlifers who are going to be managing that exact experience in huge volumes within 5 years, like millions. It's projected to be the combined populations of Adelaide and Perth, and 70% of that will be women. There'll be millions of Australians dealing with this. What do you think should be on the minds of those big systems and workplaces?
Well, as you said, there is a demand for talent at the moment. We're all scratching around for talent. If workplaces don't accommodate this, then the talent will go to a place that does.
It does.
Yeah. The fire is not on the toes yet, but I think the fire is going to come up and start coming underneath us really soon. As you say, there is a proverbial tsunami coming in terms of percentages, unless something dramatic happens. Like people are just there's going to be one of two outcomes. People are either going to be left to their own devices and really, really suffer, i.e. the people with dementia, and their journey is not supported in a beautiful, caring way, which is just heartbreaking. Or the carer is going to take a lot of the load and then go over there, and then there's not going to be the productivity in the workforce. So there's going to have to be some give. I'm sorry, there's just going to have to be a reckoning at some point.
Pretty quickly.
I would have thought so.
We just ran some research on this exact question, and about 90% of people who are currently caring for someone or anticipate that they will be, they're feeling really overwhelmed.
Yep.
Really unprepared, really quite worried about what this chapter of life is going to look like and how they're going to keep all those plates spinning. Yeah,
it's hard. And no one, everybody thinks they're invincible. Everybody thinks they're going to live forever and nothing's ever going to happen to them. But the reality is it's going to impact a lot of people.
A lot of workplaces, particularly those industries that are heavily female-led. Like you think about teaching or nursing or even aged care, healthcare, high proportions of female workforce.
Yeah. And if you take them out, and then again, that then goes to the diversity issue as well. Like, in the tech sector in particular, the tech sector has a major challenge in relation to getting more women in there because women equals diversity. Women and a whole lot of other things equal diversity. So if you take women out, that's 50%. Like that's crazy.
Crazy.
Yeah. In a sector that needs it more. I think
that downward pressure on productivity, on the economy, as well as that pain that's going to be experienced in a lot of families with interruptions to earning capacity and longer term financial sustainability. I think it's really worrying.
Yeah, it's
a real blind spot.
Choppy. It's going to be very choppy next 5-10 years for sure. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about government 3.0 because, we've talked about it, but I'm not sure it's a term that many listeners would be, too familiar with. And I've been really fascinated around the way you weave this story together around life transitions and what people need through the lens of government 3.0, connecting services around life events.
Well, okay.
Give us a bit of a 101.
Okay, 101. Government 0 is paper government. It's just, full of forms, full of silos, tell us not once, tell us 100 times, but generally in paper channels. A big meteor hit the planet in 1990. It was called the internet, and it forced every government to go from government 0 to government 1.0 or G1. And they went from paper form to web form, but still in silos. Then 15 years later, in 2005, another big meteor hit the planet, and it was called platform social media, smartphones, right? And it forced every government around the world to go from G1 to G2. So we were interactive government at that point. So we're still in silos, digital channels and paper channels. But at least now we're starting to get some feedback on the phone, thumbs up, thumbs down, social media, bit of feedback, don't like your services, try and improve here or there. 15 years later, another meteor hit the planet. And again, when I say meteors, they hit every government. It's not like it was just bespoke to New Zealand or it's just happened up in Canada. Global. Every government around the world had these challenges. And that was called COVID. It forced every government to start thinking, G2 is not going to cut it anymore. These silos, these digital things are pretty cool, but we're not going to get through COVID unless we start connecting services. So a lot of governments started putting their toe in the water of what G3 could look like, connected government. G3 meant, for example, with the Service app, if we didn't have a G3 architecture, what would have happened is the border pass would have been done by transport. They would have issued you with an app. A QR check-in would have been done by police. They would have issued a police app. The vaccine certificates would have been issued by health app. The Dine Discover vouchers would have been issued by a Treasury app. You get the point. There would have been 5 or 6 different apps, different times you have to complete and identify yourself, all these things. That would have taken time. People would have seen.
People sort of dropped out.
People would have dropped
too
out.
Much.
You're never going to get the adoption rates or the satisfaction scores. So people started thinking, okay, this works. What's happened though? And then AI started really coming over the top of that. But what's happened, Melissa, is that most governments went from G3, the crisis is over, now we'll go back to G2. Because the change between G0 and G1 is a tech change. G1 to G2, tech change. G2 to G3, the tech exists. It's a culture change. And
it's a mindset change. I mean, when you describe, I'm thinking about the one front door. That's how I'm making sense of G3. Is that a reasonable way to think about it?
But that's that's we could have done that with the tech.
Yes.
Social media was doing that, right? Mm-hmm. One front door. But that's a culture change or a mindset change. That's hard. So, that's what the Future Government Institute is about. How do we get more from G2 to G3? Because then we've got to start preparing for the next big meteor that's going to hit the planet in another 15 years' time. So 2035, everyone is going to have, if you've got a smartphone, you're going to have a Jarvis on your phone, or in your glasses or on your ears. Or with the humanoid robotics coming out, literally a Jarvis that's going to be in your home, right? You're going to have 6G communications. You're going to have some form of AGI, however you want to describe it. We'll probably be at the beginning of some enterprise level of quantum by that point. It's going to be a very augmented world. It's not just going to be physical. We're going to have Jiminy the Cricket and people talk, bots talking in our ears. It's really going to be augmented, fundamentally different to where we are today. That's intelligent government. That's G4. We need new trust architecture for that and infrastructure for that. What does that look like? But most governments are squandering opportunities in G2 land, and all this trauma is happening because they can't get to G3, let alone to G4.
Do you think governments can do this work, or do you think that they need to be what is the way that may happen?
Yeah, but through example. So again, Service New South Wales was an example. Was the whole government fixed? No, but you had pockets of really good here and there. And generally, when I go to government, so I do a lot of travel these days, I see a lot of good pockets here and there coming out. But generally, the maturity levels are in the G2 space. But you get places like Singapore that have been really pushing that G3 type.
What's some of the best stuff? Tell us about the best things that you're seeing out there that give you that kind
Singapore,
of inspiration.
The easiest part is, if you get in the plane, you go to Singapore. It's passportless.
Not that nasty little card that you have to fill out with a pencil in the dark.
Dinosaur that's right. It's embarrassing. it's just crazy stuff. A country as good as or great as Australia is. But
I wouldn't have thought that would have been the hardest thing to innovate either.
it's not.
No, it's interesting, isn't it? Because it is such a pain point.
It's been done a lot of times. Like we would be one of the few countries I would have left, definitely in the OECD. Having said that, I went to Egypt the other day and I had to fill out a form. But that's the land of the pyramids, so they love antiquity.
We don't really have that excuse.
Well, anyway.
Maybe that's another conversation. Yes.
So, but New Zealand's got. People say, "Oh, biosecurity risk." Well, go across the ditch. They've got got a little thing called a kiwi over there. They've got to be very precious about their biosecurity as well. They've managed to do it. Like, it's got nothing to do with tech. It's all to do with culture and mindset, as you said. But in Singapore, they're moving ahead to passportless. Abu Dhabi's doing the same. Dubai, But then again, you go into the Nordic areas like Estonia and Finland and Denmark, and even there's pockets in the UK. There's pockets here and there, but the big exemplars that I've seen that are moving really fast towards that G3 is, Singapore, Finland, Estonia, that area, and the Middle East. They're moving really fast. And even Asia, parts of Asia, they're really moving fast.
So what's the most exciting thing you've come across in those travels that really demonstrates that G3?
That tells once approach where government, rather than being reactive, can be proactive. So rather than getting an ambulance for you as you fall off the cliff, they're giving you support so you don't fall off the cliff. That's, again, if we want to reduce suffering, that's how you do it. You don't do it by holding somebody's hand and breaking,
pulling them out of the river. Yeah,
that's not reducing suffering. So that's how we need to evolve, and fast.
If you could, pick one or two challenges when you think about Australia, the shape of our aging population, the kind of volume and the velocity that this is coming at us, and you could think about one or two things that would make the biggest difference for families, what do you think they would be?
Yeah, again, I keep coming back to that service approach because it works. It's demonstrably working. That tell us once approach, that one-stop shop. People don't need all this noise in their life. And forms is just noise. It's traumatic. It's piercing. So, how do we reduce that so that we have, in the very precious time we got, put as much of that precious time, quality time with loved ones and yourself, caring for yourself, giving you time to grieve and breathe, rather than these wretched damn processes that it's too hard to navigate. So if that tell us once approach, I think would take a lot of burden away from people.
Gosh, that makes so much sense to me. I think a lot around, when my husband died and I had to take his death certificate, and this is pre-Service New South Wales, so it probably would be better today. But I had to put that certificate on the counter in front of so many strangers who then looked at it and figured out that this had happened to me and to my family. And then, you just feel exposed. You feel tired and sad again.
Sad, right?
You're trying to manage their emotion. It's like, I just need to put this in the cloud somewhere and tell you all where it is. Just take me out of this thing. That kind of joined up thinking doesn't seem that hard.
It's doable.
Yeah, it's totally doable.
In fact, if I was still there now, I'm glad I'm out. But if I was still there, I'll never go back.
I was wondering if you were going to mention that you were glad you're out.
I'm there. I'm glad I'm out.
Yeah.
I'll never go back. But I'm super grateful for the opportunity. But if I was there, the roadmap that was planned out was, digitize the birth certificate, digitize the marriage certificate, digitize the death certificate, all these things because we can do it. These are essentially credentials. We can digitize and make them verifiable to source. Then all of a sudden, that journey that you were talking about,
pain point has just disappeared.
Pretty much.
And you've saved hours for the insurer, the bank, all the people looking for that source of truth. You've just taken all the work off them as well. It's so much.
I wouldn't even know. For my birth certificate, I wouldn't even know where it is. I applied for it recently. All these paper certificates, they're meaningless these days because you can fabricate them so quickly.
Yeah.
So governments are going to get there eventually. It's a question of how long it's going to take them.
Well, let's hope we can put some impetus behind that.
I'm trying.
Pretty quickly.
I'm agitating as much as I can.
Back on a personal level, what has this journey with your mum taught you about what really matters?
Oh, what really matters is time. Yeah. Well, I'm here. I constantly think about this. I'm here as a speck in space and time. But the speck of time I've got on this journey is so precious. So how much of that time can I spend with my mum and quality people in my life? And how do I reduce the noise?
Yeah, and you also, I think you talked about other aspects of that, just around recognizing that opportunity came your way and how do you give that
I got
back?
lucky.
So that, yeah.
So how do I, so there's quality time with mum, and then there's quality time in work. And that's the other thing I learned as a minister. When you're so busy, it's so easy to get on the treadmill and just go. But you need to give yourself time. And I think leaders need to sort of just literally pencil in some time during the day to think, to process, to say, actually, where are the big levers I can pull here? Because otherwise I'm just going to be lost in the weeds and nothing gets done.
Yeah, the busyness doesn't equal output.
No,
Always, does it?
or impact, positive impact.
Yeah, it's very true.
If you want really positive impact, you're going to have to give yourself time to think about it and give yourself that license.
And for families who might just be beginning this journey, caring for a loved one with dementia, what would you want them to hear from you?
There are better ways. Like, again, I've been blessed. I've got two sisters. I've got a mum that, we're a very close-knit family. So we came together. So very, very blessed. But, for families going through this journey, definitely reach out and ask for help. Like my sister put it perfectly with Violet. She, when Catherine spoke to you, the first thing she said to me after she spoke to you, I wish I spoke to Melissa 5 years ago. So, reach out. You don't have to be alone.
Thank you. That's a lot that we've covered. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for taking us to kind of those personal and professional places, because I think it's really rare sometimes to hear that level of genuine personal reflection from someone who has worked at the top of the system. So I'm really grateful for that. And I know that, listeners will take away not just ideas from this conversation, but, maybe some hope that we can build those systems with more dignity, more compassion, less friction. It's been a real privilege. Thank you for the chat.
I'm building that global community. Trust me, the cavalry's coming.
Love it. Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa.